Hi everyone, I wanted to welcome all of you to today's webinar. Today's session will be on business insights and it will be showing you the essentials that you need to know about understanding your support metrics and capturing CSat, which is customer satisfaction within Desk. Now, this is the last webinar in our admin series, but go ahead and visit our registration page for the next iteration of the webinar series. On that same page, you can also check out previous webinar sessions or even go directly to our YouTube channel and find the onboarding webinar playlist to watch from there. So my name is Brian Suh. I'm the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk. And I have here with me Brooke and Kevin. Do you guys want to give an introduction of yourselves? We'll start with Brooke.
Sure, my name is Brooke Lane. I've been here at Desk for about 2.5 years and I'm in the product management team. Among other things, I've been in charge of our business insights development, so our native reporting suite.
Kevin?
My name is Kevin Prodell. I've been at Desk for about 1.5 years, and I work on the support team. And my focus here is generally the reporting-related questions, and digging into the reporting issues.
And so before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. Following our training session will be a short Q&A. So as the training proceeds, please feel free to type in your questions into the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll do our best to get them all answered towards the end of the session. Our session today is being recorded, so if you can't stay with us for the entire time, then that's okay. We'll be emailing the recording within 24 hours, and we'll also be posting the video to our YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and learn more about Business Insight and CSAT. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Brooke.
Great, thank you very much. So as most of you know, Desk.com, we like to say of ourselves, we make the most of every customer interaction with Desk.com. And the real important thing here is that underneath this simple to use, easy interface is a very powerful suite of tools that allow you to effectively and efficiently run your contact center channels and your contact organization. So the first thing I like to do is step back a moment and talk about the value of your support organization. And most of those of you who are online right now are listening as either contact center leaders, contact center managers, or CEOs of companies, of small companies. And the first thing we need to do is to set straight the record on what the contact center is for your company. So too many people think of the contact center as simply a cost center. But really what I like to do is highlight the value of the contact organization. So how do we determine that the contact organization is a value center instead of just a cost center? Well, let's look at some of the primary things that this group of people do. They capture and identify issues, right? These are the people who are constantly interfacing with your customers, and not only are they doing these interactions, but they're the people who understand what the problems are in terms of magnitude, what the important problems are, and what the problems are that cause people headaches, and what cause people to want to look for a different solution than the one that you're offering. Not only that, and this is very important, the contact organization can actually be people who discover areas of opportunity. Let's take the example of an ancillary business or a secondary or tertiary offering that your company could provide simply by having those exposed to you by your customers who are on interactions with you, either by email or phone or Facebook or Twitter. And that's hugely valuable to the company. Think of the possibility of even doubling or even tripling your business just on understanding what customers are asking for via your contact channels. Third, they interpret the customer's language, and I heard this a couple of years ago, and it really resonated with me. I had a contact center leader come to me and said that one of the greatest areas of value that they offered to their business was an interface for their sales and marketing organizations, because the contact people understood the terms and phrases that the customers were using, and that they therefore resonate with customers if marketing and sales could reiterate those back to the customers. So that was an interesting learning for me, and really, again, reinforced a value statement for contact. Fourth, they manage their emotional well-being, right? There's nobody more in touch with the upset customer than your contact organization, and they're the people who can turn an upset customer into an evangelist through a series of really powerful interactions. And finally, they're there to externalize the customer voice, or your company's voice. It's interesting because we talk so much about your marketing organization and your sales organization sort of in terms of setting the customer's voice, but very often your contact organization has as much or more pull with your customers as do those other outwardly facing groups. So how can you use Desk tools to measure value? That's one of the things we've really looked to build into Desk.com and especially our reporting tools. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of your contact organization, and we'll dive into each of these, but through these four areas. One is productivity, right? How efficiently and effectively does your team handle those contacts? Two, the issue or the identification of issues and opportunities. What's driving those contacts and how can you manage them? Third, the management of your self-support channel. And we'll talk a little, we've got a whole section on that in a few minutes, but we really want to highlight the value of self-support and what your customers think about that. And fourth, utilizing tools like customer satisfaction surveys to make sure that you're understanding not only how to quantify the problem areas, but actually how to understand what customer sentiment is. So we'll start first with productivity. And this is an area that contact center leaders usually start with in their minds, right? How effectively am I handling all of this inbound volume? And in today's world, it's not just inbound volume by phone and email, but we allow you at Desk to hook up to Twitter and to Facebook, so your social channels are also feeding you inbound volume. And while that's a good thing because you're understanding the customer at many more touch points, it makes it more challenging for you to keep up with that. So the tools that we give you to allow you to manage the understanding of inbound volumes and how effective you're being in tackling those include things like standardized metrics for agent and team productivity, looking at things like patterns of activity. What do my Monday volumes look like? And over a 5-week period, are those Monday volumes consistently high, let's say? Diving into things like which customers are demanding the most from us, which ones are costing us the most in terms of time, and then how can I look at things like spikes and seasonality so that I can manage my contact center staffing or at least my customer expectations accordingly. And so let's look at some of the performance metrics report, and we'll dive into these with an example. Kevin will show us these in a moment, but some of the things to look for is the fact that we present information in a logical and organized way. And that's really important, especially for those of you who want to consistently be able to touch a reporting system like the Desk.com Business Insights, get the information you need, and then go take action on it. We don't want to have a system whereby you need to take hours and hours just to generate the data that you're looking for. So we have a dashboard that gives you feedback on what's happening right now and within the last 24 hours. We give you a time-based report and the overview report. That's the one I was speaking to. Look at your Monday volumes over a 5-week period. And then we give you groups and agents reports to look at the effectiveness of your teams. And then we highlight all of this with a set of metrics that allow you to see the counts of things like cases created and cases resolved, time period data, cumulative data, and then calculations for those common contact center metrics. So I'll turn it over to Kevin for a demo.
All right. Well, let's go and take a look at the dashboard report here. So here you can see we have a series of tiles, and these are designed to display the data in more real time. It's updated every 5 minutes. And so along the first row, you have kind of a snapshot of what's going on right now. So if you look here on the far left, we have cases by filter, which is really useful for seeing how many cases you have to handle, how many are in your top 6 or 7 filters, which are usually the most important. So this is a great way to see where is my team at right now, and maybe we need to skip a meeting if we have a lot of unassigned cases. So that's a great tool for kind of figuring out how many cases do we have right at the moment. Active cases by age. This one is great because it shows you your aging cases. Are you falling behind in the queue? It shows you how old the new and open cases are in your system. Case volume today by channel. Maybe you have a big spike on Twitter. Maybe something happened and you're getting a lot of chatter about it, or you just released a new product. This is a great way to get insights into where your cases are coming from. So top labels, top macros, and top custom fields. This row here is a good way to identify trends. It shows you, specific things. Maybe you have a specific label for, product returns, or maybe you have VIP customers labeled. That will show you maybe you have a lot of, X going on today, and that's something you need to address quickly, or can tell you to look into something. Maybe you have some sort of, defect going on. So that's what the second row is kind of designed to help you identify trends in more qualitative things. And this doesn't have any data, but the third row is designed to tell you how your agents are doing. So it would show you which agents have resolved the most cases, how long they're taking to respond, and also how well the customers are responding to them. So from the dashboard report, the next one we're going to look at is the overview report, which is the basic, how report by day and by channel. So this report, if you load it up, it shows you the last week by channel here, and you can actually change the date here at the top left. So maybe we want to go back and look at January. So we would just, set our starting and end date. Then we'll load that. And then you would get this nice little cloud, and then see the breakdown of how many created cases you have by channel. Now, in the lower part of the report, it will show you the different metrics, and then you can sort on them just by clicking at the top of each individual column. So say I want to look at the most created cases, which day had the most. I would see here it was Friday the 9th of January. And then clicking on the next column will change the graph to display that data, and so on. So if you look through each one of these, it'll show that specific metric in the graph above. Now the graph is really cool because you can remove the channels that you don't want to see. So say I just want to look at Twitter cases. I would just deselect these other two, or you can also click on it directly, and that will show you all the Twitter cases that you got during that time period. And then if you click on it again, it will pop up and show the other ones. So yeah, this is the overview report. The other thing that a lot of people miss is that down here next to FCR rate is a little arrow. And if you click on that, it gives you another page of metrics. And the second page is more like fine-grained, and interaction counts, number of times that you resolve the case actually, reopens, deletes, and then also the CSat, which we don't have any data for here, but here's where you would go to see the customer satisfaction rating average on the day that, in the row here. Now, the other big performance report is the agents report. And the agents report is great because it allows you to look at which agents did what during your selected date range. One cool thing about these types of reports is there's a little button here that allows you to stack the channel types on top of each other. So looking at this report, it shows you the number of resolved cases, their handle time, how fast they were at resolving the case. And this is perfect for identifying which agents are doing the best, or which ones are maybe falling a little behind. The report looks at who performed the action rather than who's assigned to the case. And that's a big distinction because it allows for agents to get credit for the work that they've done. So those three reports are kind of your go-to reports on the first things you should check when you get into new business insights. And I think let's move on now.
Excellent. Let's flip back to the slideshow.
All right.
So the next thing we're going to talk about with new business insights is issue and opportunity identification. And this is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of the value that your support organization can provide. Think of this. This is a classic example. You've got a woman named Sarah. She leads the support organization for Company X. And every Monday morning, Sarah walks into an executive meeting with the leaders from across the company, and they do an update. And Sarah's update on this particular Monday goes something like this. We had 1,050 cases last week. We handled all of them with an average response time of 1 hour and 36 minutes. Our team went from 3 minutes and 15 seconds average handle time to 3 minutes and 8 seconds handle time. And Barry was out on Thursday, Friday with PTO, so we suffered a little bit in that way, but we kept up with the volume overall. Now that's a fine status report from Sarah to the executive team. But imagine this. Imagine if Sarah walked into the meeting and instead was able to say, or at least augmented what she said before with this. We found that 13% of our inbound cases related to shipping, and we think the majority of those relate to DHL shipping to Canada. And also, we identified a bug within our system that we think is driving about 10% of our overall case volume. So I went to the engineering team, and I filed a bug with them, and they realized it's a P1 bug, and they're getting right on it. So I went to operations as well, and we're talking to DHL about fixing those Canadian shipping issues, or at least looking for another vendor. And in doing those two things, we think that we can manage away between 15 and 18% of our overall contact volume. That second set of statements that Sarah made really provide a tremendous amount of value to the organization. If she can work with people, she can take what she's learned, what the contact organization takes in on a daily basis, and push it back to the operations team for DHL and the engineering or product teams for the bugs that they're seeing, then she's truly made an impact to the organization, and furthermore, positively impacted the customers by hopefully stopping these issues from happening in the first place. And so one of the things we really have endeavored to do at Desk in our reporting is to allow you to quantify those problem types so that you can, as a support leader, go and make those recommendations and interface with those other people within the company. So let's look at that really quickly. So what do we want to do with analytics? Well, we want to find out things like the 5 bullet points here. Which customers are reporting issues? What issues are driving support, or in terms of volume? Which of those questions that you handle are costing you the most in terms of agent time, or in terms of number of agent interactions? What are those issues that are most complex, either from the standpoint of like technical complexity or just managing people's emotional well-being complexity? And what tickets are most likely to get reopened and have to be handled over and over and over again? And so at Desk, we give you a couple of really powerful tools to help you. We allow you to set up custom fields and labels. And so custom fields are just a system of organization, most often using a drop-down. Can also be one of a number of other types of custom fields. But in drop-downs, you might have something like a purchase issues list, where I've shown here shopping cart and checkout and shipping costs, etc. A priority list, a country of origin, a reason for return. So you can have multiple list custom fields in Desk and set those up to whatever your needs are. And then we allow you to also just apply labels to cases to further kind of identify what those issue types are. And I've thrown in here a bunch of examples. But really the power of Desk is that it allows you to create the labels and custom field values that you want to use, or that are most meaningful to your business. And then we also put the application of labels not only in the hands of the agents, labels and custom fields not only in the hands of the agents, but allow the system to do some of that work for you. So for example, if you're using a web form for customers to email you on your help page, then we can have the customers utilize a drop down or two to help self-identify what those issues are. This system, Desk.com, can also automatically be set up to apply labels to tickets as they come in. So you might recognize some keywords like UPS or password or broken and take actions or apply labels and custom fields on those. Or you might set up customers with something like MVP or high value, and then generate labels based on that. And then finally, of course, the agents, through their interactions, can set up additional labels. So we'll jump right back into another quick demo and let Kevin show you how labels work in Desk.
All right, well, let's hop back into Business Insights. And here I've loaded up the labels report, which can just be selected from the list here at the top left. And so this is just a big list of all of the labels that have been selected during our selected date range, which is up here at the top left. So what we can do here is stack these on top of each other, and so we can easily see here that we have one label that stands out above the rest, and then several others that are kind of high volume. And so the first one here is setup. We have 5,389 cases created, and we also have some other metrics like resolved cases with that label, times applied, average number of interactions. And so this is really powerful because it just allows you to identify these are the top 10 issues here that are really we're really getting a lot of cases about. So if you look at here, you'll see we have a couple that you might be concerning here. We have returns and exchanges. We have 2,000 of those. We have 1,700 damaged cases. So that could if you see a spike in these, you might it might alert you to, hey, maybe something went wrong in the last shipment, and that could save you a lot of money by heading that off early. And so once again, like, the customers really are often the first line of defense and are the first ones to raise a cry about something. And so this report will help you kind of identify those sorts of trends. The other thing to note on here is just the channel type. Damaged cases seems to pop up a lot on Facebook. So that might tell you people are very vocal about this, and you might want to put out some sort of message in order to reach out to those people. So let's go the labels report. Here at Desk, we kind of treat labels as outliers, but custom fields we kind of treat more like categories. So let's look at the custom fields report. And so here, similar setup here. And we have a couple field types, issue and country of origin as an example. And country of origin, that type of field is interesting because it gives you location data. So here we know that our top 2 countries of origin are Japan and the United States. And that may surprise you or may not, but maybe you don't have any Japanese speaking agents. Maybe you would, if this is a consistent thing, then you would need to look into hiring someone who does speak Japanese. So that's just one example of an insight that you can gain from this sort of data. And so let's look through here. Here in the lower part, this confuses some people sometimes. The base level fields, so say you have a list called issue type, and then you have certain values within that list. So here in the report, it has the base level field name here, issue, on the left, and then the value. So you can see here that there are several different types of issues: configuration, how-to, shipment delivery, etc. So that's kind of how they're organized in this report. And so one thing to note about these is they're all exportable. So here at the top right, you can click on this little down arrow in the middle button here and download CSV or email it to yourself, link it to another agent, and that way you can handle the data in Excel. So the third type we have, the other report we have is the macros report, but I don't think there's any data for this, so let's skip that for now. All right, let's switch back. All right.
All right, the third area I wanted to talk about is self-support. And it's interesting because year after year, I see multiple studies come out that show the same thing. And it's always and consistently that self-support provides the highest level of satisfaction for your customers. If they can easily and effectively find a mechanism that allows them to solve their own problems or learn about your systems or learn about your product, then they are most satisfied with that, rather than having to reach out to you and wait for a response, regardless of how fast or how personal your response is. So we really work hard to give you those mechanisms to enable you to create support so that your customers and your agents can use it. And that's the other thing too, is that if your agents can use those support tools, those self-support tools, let's say articles, then they can effectively create a support for your customer that your customer can go back to. And by that I mean, if an agent sends to a customer an article that's well-formed, that answers their question, and that customer sets that article aside, saves that email for a later edit, for a later use, and then has that question in the future, they'll most often reference that email. They'll remember that that email exists, they'll search for it, they'll find it, they'll solve their problem, and again, their level of satisfaction will be highest. So let's talk a little bit about what the value of your knowledge is. And one of the things we're doing at Desk is we're launching in the near future here a new knowledge report that's going to help you identify what those most helpful articles are and to tune your support based on the metrics that are coming in. So what do we want you to help you do? Well, we want to help you identify the articles that are viewed the most and the least, the articles that are rated the highest and the lowest, and what articles are most and least used by your support agents. And the interesting thing here is that we talk about the least, the lowest, and the least in these 3 bullet points. And that is to say, it's tremendously valuable to you as an organization to know those articles that are being used the most, but what we always also encourage you to do is go to the bottom of the list, because you may have some very valuable content at the bottom of the list that's not being found by customers because, let's say, it's not titled correctly, or it doesn't have it's not written in a way that the search engine picks it up. And so you might do some tweaks and tunes to your bottom 20 or 30 articles and find that they pop up to the top 20% very quickly. So our new content report is going to be formatted somewhat like this. We'll show you the article title. We show you the number of times the article's been viewed, and that's both by your internal agents as well as external customers. We have ratings in our articles, and so we'll show you the number of times that ratings have been submitted during the time period you specified for the report. We'll show you the percent of those ratings that are positive. We show you the times that those articles have been applied to cases, and this is really important because this shows how your agents are utilizing your knowledge for the customers. The number of times those articles have been presented as deflection and clicked as deflection. And this might confuse you for a moment, but recall if you're in the Desk.com Help Center and the customer goes and submits a case or a question to your team, what we do is we pop up a modal that offers them several articles that might help them with their problem. Well, that modal with the articles is what we say is presented as deflection, and then clicked as deflection is actually the customer clicking on that and reading that article before they send the email. So again, very, very powerful and very valuable to you. And then last updated date just gives you some insight into how recently you updated it, so you're not going into an article you just updated unnecessarily. You're waiting for a little bit of time to pass to see how that article performs after you've updated it. And again, that new report's coming out in the next 60 days. So the last area we wanted to go into is customer satisfaction, because we talked all throughout this discussion about how to quantify agent performance and issue types and your knowledge performance. But what we really want to do as well is to get into the minds of your customers and see what their emotional well-being is when we talk about that in terms of sentiment. So customer satisfaction surveys, or what we call CSat surveys, allow you to quantify sentiment. It gives you an understanding of your customer's emotional well-being. And so our tools allow you to gauge the value of the interaction in the eyes of the customer. And so there's kind of an important differentiation, because you're going to hear a lot as you evolve your business about transactional customer satisfaction versus overall satisfaction, and metrics like Net Promoter Score. But what we want to do in Desk is really to gauge the transactional sentiment. How does that customer feel about the interaction that they had with you as a company and the interaction they had with the agent that they dealt with? And so that's really the focus of this area. So we additionally want to solicit, we allow you to solicit additional feedback regarding your company and their experience. And so this is important. If a customer has taken the time to click on a customer survey, they have a much higher probability of giving you an additional bit of feedback about their interaction, and that's tremendously valuable to you. We want to obviously make this easy to understand, and then we want to feed this information across the Desk.com agent and into Desk reporting. And so now again, I'll turn it over to Kevin to give you a demo of this.
All right. Well, let's go into the admin quickly, and we'll look at the setup for customer satisfaction. So if you go into the admin, you can find this under the cases section, and then you'll see customer satisfaction down here at the bottom left. And so here on this page, you have the ability to turn this on, yes or no. You have a feedback question, which is the question that you would see displayed in the actual email when the customer reads it. This is totally customizable, so you could go something more vague, like how do we do, or you could do something more specific, like how quickly was your issue resolved. So it's really up to you to decide what do you want to ask the customer, and this is really important because it's your voice from the company, and it kind of allows you to direct the feedback. Most people would go with something general, but maybe you would want to do something more specific. So the next option here you have is the frequency of the feedback. You have the option of with every resolution or with just the first resolution. So that's every time that the agent hits, update and resolve, update and send and resolve, then it would go out in that email. Feedback type, we have two options, the 2 smiley option or the 4 smiley option. Some people like simple yes or no. Some people like a more of a range. I'd say most people go with the 4 smiley option. Additional feedback. This allows you to, offer up a section where after they click the smiley face, they're taken to a different page which has a comment section. You can specify that the question that's asked, and then the final option here is use my portal for CSat. That allows you to use your own branded support center when they submit the feedback. So let's update that, and then I'll show you how to actually, how this actually works. So what we do here is we would go to the agent here, and let's make a new case, email case for Kevin, and let's create that case, and we would say thanks for, we would just say something simple here, and we would hit send and resolve. So since we've specified that we would send the smileys on every resolution, we hit send and resolve, the smileys will be added to the email that goes out to the customer. So let's do that. Click Send and Resolve. And then as the customer, this is what I would see when receiving the email. Here's what it looks like. This is all customizable, but here's what it looks like by default. So I was really happy with this interaction. So I would say, great. And then it would take me to the feedback page. And I would say, awesome. And then submit. And now when I go back to the agent here, I would see a rating. There's a CSat column here. Let's see. So I could see that rating here directly in the filter view. And then also, if I were to go into the case, I would see the satisfaction score here at the top right. So what does that look like in the reporting? So if I go back to the overview report, and once again, here at next to FCR right here, there's a little arrow. Click on that, and you would get the CSAT score, the average for your selected day. You'd also find it in most of the other reports. The main one is the agents report. So if you load up the agents report, click the little arrow here, you would see their CSAT rating for that day. So yeah, that's a general overview of how the CSAT workflow works, but it's pretty simple. That's it.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge with us. Just a couple of closing remarks here. As a reminder, please register for our upcoming webinars and also check out our previous sessions on our YouTube channel. You can always visit our support center to find great articles on how to set up and use Desk. Also, if you ever need further help or guidance, then please don't hesitate to contact our support team at support@desk.com. We have a few more minutes remaining here. Let's go ahead and field some questions here. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar questions panel. I'll let you guys answer just however you guys feel comfortable. First one here, can these reports be exported to Excel?
Yes, it's actually very easy. Within each report, we have a download link in the upper right corner, and that exports the report data actually in the format or sort order that you've specified in the report to a CSV file, which can be opened in an instant by Excel. So let's say I sorted a report by average handle time in ascending order. When I export that CSV file, it will be exported in the format you're seeing on the page.
Okay, great. Next question. Is there a limit of custom fields allowed in Desk? And then also follow up here, can I report on all my custom fields?
Yeah, there's a limit of 50 custom fields. So that's the maximum number of fields you can have. But within those custom fields, list values offer, they have value ranges. I've seen up to 200 values in the list. So there's a lot of information you can pack in there. And in the custom fields report, we only show fields that have set values, like list fields. They have 5 things in the list, so we would show a report on those 5 things. The other type is true or false, but number and date and text fields we don't show in this report.
Okay, great. Next question here. I'm just starting off with Desk. What are the top 3 reports I should focus on?
I would say generally the overview report, because it gives you an understanding of what's happening in terms of inbound volume and your effectiveness in handling those inbound volumes. The second one, I would say probably the agents report, because it allows you to look at who your top performing agents are, and you really want to be able to push the information in their heads and their skills out across the organization. And the third one is probably the labels, because companies generally start with labels and then graduate to creating custom fields. But labels is just a great organizational tool. And again, in terms of pushing your knowledge out to the rest of the organization, a labels report is very easy to have other people ingest in terms of the information it's presenting.
Okay. Another one here. What are some best practices around frequency of reports on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis?
That's a great question. And again, that often depends on the business. What we find is that internally, support organizations look at things much more frequently than they do if you're pushing data to external customers. It's a lot more meaningful within a support organization to have a team lead discuss the performance of their team of 6 or 7 agents within that group on a daily basis. So maybe every morning at 9 a.m. they do a quick 15-minute huddle and discuss the performance of the previous day or 2 days, and then go and tackle a bunch of other tickets, where the executive team is looking for trends at a longer timeline, weekly or biweekly.
Okay, great. Another question here. Can all my agents view their own reports?
That depends on the permission level. So Desk.com has a variety of permissions that we enable for companies to set for their agents. And if you set the agent at the appropriate permission level, then they will have access to reporting. And if you don't, then they won't be able to see that report link.
Okay, great. And I think we have time for one more question here. Last one here. Will the content report be an add-on to purchase?
The content report will be included in some of our plans. That inclusion is still TBD. As we get over the next few weeks, that decision is going to be made by the leadership here.
Okay, great. Well, that about wraps up our session for today. Brooke and Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here today. We really value just your expertise on this subject matter. So once again, thank you everyone for the audience for joining. We hope you enjoyed today's session, and thank you everyone. Take care.